I need to confess something to you before anything else. There was one night, a few years ago, when I was in the living room with my family watching the opening of one of those big world events. Everyone thinks it's beautiful. The lights, the music, the perfect choreography. And I thought so too. I clapped my hands, I got emotional too. But then, in the middle of all that, an image appeared. Quick, almost a blink of an eye that sent a strange chill down my spine. I looked around and no one had noticed. Everyone kept smiling. And it was there that a question entered my head and never left. How many things have I applauded without understanding what I was applauding? If you've ever felt that same cold and pretended you didn't, this video is for you. Because now the whole world is about to stop to watch just one thing. The biggest party on the planet. And I'm not going to ask you to be afraid or to turn off the television or to stop. I'm determined to watch. All I'm going to ask of you is one thing. Don't watch it with your eyes closed. Because for the first time in history, 3 nations will hold the World Cup in their hands at the same time. And when you stop looking only at football and start looking at the soul of these 3 countries, something begins to make sense in a way that is unsettling. It's not a theory that someone leaked, and I'm going to show you country by country, slowly, so you can come to your own conclusions. But I'm warning you, after watching this video, you'll never be able to see an opening ceremony the same way again. So breathe, stay with me, and let's start where all this began. Right before their eyes. Earlier this year, the world gathered to watch the opening of the Winter Olympics in Italy. There was a giant golden globe spinning in the center of the stadium, shining as if it were the sun itself descending to Earth. And then it opened. And when it opened, a 5-pointed star appeared in the middle of it. But inverted. Upside down. Anyone with even a basic understanding of symbolism felt their stomach churn. Because this figure is not just for decoration. It has an owner, it has a history, it has meaning. And it didn't stop there. In the middle of the show, flames appeared, along with references to the hell that Dante described 700 years ago. Everything wrapped up in art, in dance, in emotion. So you can applaud without realizing what you are applauding, and millions applauded. Now I want you to go back in time with me a little further. Paris, 2024, that opening that stopped the planet. Do you remember? In the middle of the ceremony, they staged a scene that was a blatant copy of the Last Supper, that sacred painting, the most intimate moment between Jesus and his disciples. But instead of the apostles, they put figures of mockery. It was a slap in the face to more than 2 billion Christians scattered across the earth. And the scariest part wasn't even the offense. It was natural. And when something wrong is done so calmly in front of billions, that's not carelessness. That's the message. And look, I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking this might be a coincidence. And you know what? I thought that way for a long time too. Until the day I stopped looking at isolated events and started looking at them all together. Side by side, one after the other. Because once is by chance. Doing twice might be bad luck. But when you see the same signature repeating itself at opening after opening, year after year, event after event, then it's no longer a coincidence. That's standard. And patterns have authors. These 3 countries are not just any 3 neighbors who split the bill. Each of them carries a very specific spiritual story. Each of them has an open wound, a place where the light has never truly entered. And it's not any one of them alone that keeps me awake at night. It's all 3 together. It's the sum. And I'm not saying this to scare you with ghosts, I say this because the Bible taught me to look behind the scenes. Paul wrote a phrase to the Ephesians that should be engraved on the door of every Christian home. Our fight is not against flesh and blood. It's not against people. It is against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of this dark world. In other words, the real war doesn't happen on the field. Mexico City, June 11th. It is there, in the Azteca Stadium, that the first ball of this World Cup will roll. And I want you to hold on to this word with me for a moment, without rushing. Aztec. The stadium wasn't named after a star player, a city, or a hero. It bears the name of an entire people. A people who had, at the center of everything they believed in, a practice that will give you chills. Death as an offering. Blood as currency. The Aztecs believed, with all the sincerity of their hearts, that the gods needed human blood to continue existing. The sun only rose again the following day because someone had been killed the day before to feed it. So killing wasn't a crime. It wasn't an exception. It was a duty. It was religion. Researchers estimate that tens of thousands of people were killed each year just to feed these gods. They would take the victims up to the top of the pyramids, and there, at the highest point, they would open the still living chest and tear out the heart to raise it to the heavens. And when the rain gods called, the sacrifice changed its form. They were children. Death there was not a tragedy. It was spectacular. Death turned into a spectacle. Blood turned into a spectacle. Don't forget that. Because the right question isn't what the Aztecs were doing 500 years ago. The question that keeps me awake at night is a different one. Where did this headquarters go when the pyramids were abandoned? This type of spirit does not die along with the empire that served it. He is only orphaned from the altar for a time, waiting for someone to call him by name again. And in Mexico today, in Mexico of 2026, in the same country where this World Cup will begin, that call has not only returned, he has millions of mouths to feed. He has a sanctuary. He has a new name. There is an image spreading through Mexico at a speed that is alarming even to scholars. It is the figure of a skeleton covered by a cloak, holding a scythe in one hand. Her name is Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte. And no, this is not a Halloween costume. It is an object of devotion. It's an altar with a lit candle. People are kneeling, praying, begging, making promises, kissing the feet of a skull as if it were a church saint. It's the same people, in the same place, who 500 years ago offered hearts at the top of the pyramid. The thirst hasn't died. She just changed her clothes. She dropped the sacrificial stone and donned a saint's robe. Researcher Andrew Chestnut, perhaps the world's leading authority on the subject, states that this is the fastest growing religious movement in all of the Americas. Not one of the fastest growing, the fastest growing sector. Estimates suggest more than 12 million followers spread across the globe. Of those, 7 million are concentrated in Mexico alone. Santa Muerte became the spiritual protector of the drug cartels. Scholars have observed that this devotion exploded alongside the drug war. The war that has killed approximately 80,000 people a year in Mexico since 2006. The more people die, the more frightened people run to the goddess of death for protection. And the more people serve the goddess of death, the more death that land produces. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. The Word of God, in Proverbs, has a phrase that seems made for this exact moment. All who hate me love death. And this, brother, this is just the first of the 3 countries. And as I piece together these numbers, these shrines, these dates, a shadow began to form in the back of my mind. I'm not going to name this shadow yet. It's too early. But keep it with me. Because she's going to show up again in the United States. And there she won't be dressed as a skeleton in a poor neighborhood. She'll be on the most expensive screens on the planet, being applauded by people in suits. Come with me north, cross the border, and you'll arrive in the United States. That's where this World Cup will have your heart beating the fastest. Of the total of 104 games, 78 will take place on American soil. All the matches that count, from the quarterfinals to the grand final, will be played there. And I need to ask you a question that seems simple, but it carries the weight of the entire video. How is the soul of this nation? Of this nation that prints the phrase, "In God we trust," on every banknote it manufactures. The United States was born from people who crossed the ocean fleeing persecution so they could worship God in peace. The men who founded that country opened the Bible to write the laws, and it is precisely because it started so high that the fall is so painful to watch. Check out the Super Bowl halftime show, the most watched event of the entire year in the United States. And what appears there in front of entire families, with children sitting on the living room floor? Ritual symbols, macabre images. And there's a wound in this nation that I can't get over. Abortion, the life of a baby inside the womb, still in the safest place on earth, being treated as something disposable. In Mexico, 500 years ago, they offered children on top of the pyramid to appease the rain gods. But what has really changed, fundamentally? The altar has been moved. The discourse changed. Today it's no longer a pyramid scheme, it's a clinic. But the offer is the same. Death has changed its clothes again. She only learned to speak the modern language. And it was when I put all of that together that a verse fell into my lap with a weight I hadn't expected. It is in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Do not be woe to those who do evil. Woe to those who call evil good. The conviction is not solely for the mistake. It's because the names are reversed. And the Bible already had a name for such a power, a city that seduces nations and intoxicates the world with its cup. Babylon. A stage this size is never just a stage. It is a pulpit. The question is simply whose sermon it is. And when one provocation passes, do you know what happens with the next one? It comes bigger. She's coming in bolder, because they had already measured their reaction in the previous test and discovered that they could advance a little further. The difference between being deceived and not being deceived almost never lies in a person's intelligence. It's on her mind. The clever but inattentive one falls for it. The simply observant escape. 2 cities in Canada will host games in this World Cup, Toronto and Vancouver. And when I say Canada, I know the image that comes to your mind, because it came to mine too. The friendly neighbor from North America. Polite people who apologize even when they bump into you on the street. But I learned one thing in life. Sometimes the most dangerous place isn't the one that seems dangerous. It seems too safe. In the year 2016, Canada passed a law. In practice, it's euthanasia legalized, physician-assisted suicide, all organized and paid for by the government itself. In the first year that this law was in effect, approximately 1,000 people died within this program. 1,000. But things didn't stay at 1,000. She fired. In 2022, that number exceeded 13,000 people in a single year, from 1,000 to 13,000. These 13,000 represented 4% of all deaths in the entire country that year. Today, More people die in Canada because of this program than from murder, traffic accidents, and drowning combined. And nobody marches in the streets for that, because it has a nice name, because it came slowly. This program was created in the beginning only for those who were given up for dead, for whom doctors had already said there was nothing more that could be done. But in 2021, the rule changed. Now you no longer need to be dying to ask for death. There are already documented cases of people who asked to die not because of the disease, but because of poverty. And just when you think you've hit rock bottom, there's another step to fall. Because now they are pushing to expand this program to also reach people who suffer from mental health issues. Because Mexico kills in secret, in alleyways. The United States kills to the applause of the audience. But Canada has learned to kill with a form, with a signature, with the blessing of the law. In Deuteronomy, he says, "I have set before you life and death. Therefore choose life, deciding who lives and who dies, stamping the final blow on someone's existence that has never been the prerogative of any man." This is God's chair. In Mexico, a spirit of death worshipped by millions. In the United States, death is exported as spectacle, and the innocent are discarded as a choice. In Canada, death is signed and stamped by the state itself. 3 forms, one same God behind them. There's a tactic, and it's so simple it seems silly. But it's precisely because it's simple that it works so well. It's called getting used to the look. When this world system wants to introduce something that people would normally never accept, it doesn't just force it on them all at once. He presents things in small pieces, slowly, disguised as art, disguised as culture, and especially when disguised as sport and entertainment, because it is in this disguise that your guard completely falls. If you see something wrong even once, you find it strange, you get scared. But if you see that same thing 10 times in 10 different events, by the 10th time, you won't even turn your head anymore. It became part of the scenery. It's become normal. And what has become normal, you no longer fight against. You live together. Instead of training you to recognize what is wrong, they train you to no longer feel anything in the face of it. They numb your spirit through repetition. These events aren't just for planting. They also serve as a test. If no one complains, if it goes unnoticed, they understand that the ground is ready, and next time they advance further. You're the guinea pig, and the experiment runs at each opening. Paul wrote in Romans 12:2, a phrase that is practically the exact antidote to this entire tactic. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The Christian who understands the tactic is no longer a guinea pig. He became an observer. And when you understand this, an inevitable question begins to burn inside you. For what? Why all this engineering, this decades-long patience, this gigantic and coordinated effort to accustom all of humanity to accepting what it previously rejected? There's a goal at the end of that road. I asked you, at the very beginning of this video, to remember a shadow that I didn't want to name. The time has come for me to say her name. His name is Antichrist. The Antichrist, in Scripture, is not a horned monster emerging from the ground in flames. If that were the case, nobody would follow him. Everyone would run. The Bible describes him as attractive, eloquent, admired, a leader whom the whole world will willingly want to follow. The word anti in the original language doesn't just mean against. It also means instead of. He comes to take the place of Christ. It's such a well-made forgery that it will fool almost anyone. Because for a false Christ to be accepted as the true one must first be erased from the world's memory. When Mexico worships death, it is emptying the place of the God of life. When the United States mocks the sacred on the biggest screens on the planet, it is accustoming billions to laughing at what they should fear. When Canada puts the state in the position of deciding who lives and who dies, it is training the world to accept that a human authority can occupy the seat that belongs only to God. 3 steps of the same staircase. I'm not telling you that the 2026 World Cup is the fulfillment of the prophecy. I'm not one of those people who set dates and end up embarrassed. What I'm telling you is that she's exactly the kind of cog that prepares the ground. It's a brick in the construction, and I know that at this point in the video your heart might be heavy. But I need to tell you something that changes everything. The same Bible that describes the Antichrist with such precision describes, with far greater force, the end of history. And the end doesn't belong to him. And when Christ returns, and he will return, the Bible says he will undo all of this with the breath of his mouth. With a breath. So fear is not the message of this video. Fear was never the message. Fear is the only thing that makes you pay attention. Because the Antichrist only has power over those who are asleep. About those who applaud without looking, about those who swallow without tasting, about those who follow the crowd just because it's a crowd. So let me be very clear with you about one thing. Liking football is not a sin. Cheering for Brazil is not a sin. I'll watch it myself. I'll be rooting for you. The Bible nowhere forbids having fun. What the Bible calls sin is not fun. It's idolatry. Idolatry happens whenever anything steals God's place within you. So my advice to you is simple and fits in the palm of your hand. You can watch the games. Cheer with all your might for our Brazil. But when the time comes for the opening and closing ceremonies, an alarm bell rings inside you. Don't swallow with your eyes closed. Repair, money. And if you have children, this part is the most important of all. Don't take the child out of the room, please. Sit next to her, and when the symbol appears, he explains. Because the best defense you can give your child is not to blind them to the world, but to teach them to see. Because the enemy doesn't need you to be evil to defeat you. He just needs you to take a nap. Therefore, the question I want to leave you with is not whether anything will happen in this World Cup. The real question, the only one that matters, is whether you'll be awake when it happens. You have been woken up, and those who have been awakened have a responsibility that those who are asleep do not have. The responsibility of not falling asleep again, and more than that, the one about waking someone up. So I ask you just one thing, from the bottom of my heart. If this video opened your eyes, even just a little, don't let that light die inside you. Share it. Send this to that person you love, who is still watching everything with their eyes closed. Let your eyes keep watch. Let your heart pray. And when the party starts, have fun, cheer, live, but don't give your soul to anyone but God. I'll stay here, but I won't leave you alone. I'll be waiting for you next time. May the Lord keep your eyes open and your heart steadfast, now and in all that is to come.